Let's talk about the business of the day as it relates to theater with your hosts, Darnelle Radford and Mitch Weiss. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. Mitch, I know we're looking for a working title, but we cannot name the podcast The Business of Theater. Pollen is in the air.
Oh, Darnelle, and I thought you were starting a really nice track for a rap song.
I could have done. Wait.
There you go. See? and let's be clear, Love is in the Air is from Sondheim. It was originally in Funny Thing Happened the Way of the Forum, and you just did a little nice funny take on that with Pollen in the Air. And no, we can't make it the subtitle.
Yeah.
So moving on.
And my sniffles beat was from America. West Side Story.
Of course. Which one? The new version? The middle version? A regional version?
The original version.
Pick one. The original version.
This is The Business of Theater, a working title. I am Darnelle Radford.
I'm Mitch Weiss.
And let's get down to business. Mitch, I've been super busy. Super busy.
Yes, you have.
But it's been fun. Last week, I got to see the national tour of Frozen.
That was fun?
It was.
You're talking to a non-fan.
It's here in Philadelphia at Ensemble Arts Philly, which is the new name of the Kimmel Cultural Campus. It was at the Academy of Music, which people have their likes and dislikes about the Academy of Music. The acoustics are not ideal for Broadway, but if you're in the right seats, it seems to be fine. I think it's only when you get to the upper levels that you start to notice. But the production, I was not comparing it, but I was thinking about The Lion King at the same time because we just saw The Lion King recently. And I just felt like my first thought was, that's where the Disney dollars are. It's clearly on stage. But the way they used lighting and the flies to create that ice palace, it was just so seamless and beautiful. There wasn't a flaw in this production. Everyone loved it. Everyone, even some of our tough critics, because I was in the press row. Everybody was in awe, just going ape poopy over it.
Okay, and I'm going to, being the elder statesman in the room, I'm going to compare it with the original Follies, and I know there are fans of Follies out there. The original Follies had a moment when they go into Loveland, which is about 3/4 of the way through the show. And the show takes place in a decrepit, rundown, about to be torn down ancient theater, which it looks like rubble through most of the show. And all of a sudden, we're going into the world of what vaudeville and Ziegfeld was like. And the characters almost bombard into each other's heads. They're having such argument, and wham, chiffon drops from every inch of the stage. The lights, the flies, the proscenium, it is all chiffon. And everyone on stage is dazzled and looking around, as is the audience. There has never been a transformation like that. It took your breath away. And There have been others, but, and certainly other versions of Follies where they try to do similar effects. But the original, oh my God, the chiffon. So for Disney to turn, I saw Frozen on Broadway. I saw the effect. I went, compared to what I have seen in the past. And that's where I have to compare it. I'm sorry.
Well, the other things about it is there's a lot of adult humor in it. And I thought that was fun because that could easily be, it's got a level for the kids, but it's definitely adult humor, especially when Anna interacts with any of the men.
Right. But then again, which is smart for Disney and anyone else, you have to have that kind of dialogue or action for the adults because they're paying the $200 per seat.
Yes.
For their children who only want to hear "Let It Go." That's all they want.
Yeah, I assume this was added for the musical because I don't remember this in the movie. But the whole scene where they stop by the shop with the sauna,
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's like there's a whole dance number there, and all the actors come out nude with strategically placed branches, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, they're wearing like nude bodysuits. Of course, it's Disney. They probably had several layers underneath to make sure. They treated that like Marilyn Monroe photo shoots. But it was fun, and something that doesn't usually happen for opening night is that there was an opening night party that we were invited to. The press was invited to. And normally they don't do this, so I couldn't figure out if it was Ensemble Arts who was setting it up, or was it Disney?
Well, what do you mean they don't? I will say up until, I don't know what time in my life, every opening night invited the press who were there.
I know, but on this tour, I mean, like every show I've seen on the press night, we have not been invited to an opening party.
Taking it personally, are we?
No. I just wondered, was this Ensemble Arts or was this the production? And I think it was the production because Matt, my partner Matt, has a friend in the show who plays Sven.
Oh, cool!
And so they sat with us at the after party. We also sat with the pianist in the orchestra and a couple other people. And they were just talking about, the tour in general and how it was going. It was really cool to just kind of have that inside track.
Was the party at a restaurant or in the theater?
No, it was in the ballroom at the Academy of Music.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like right upstairs. Nice. But it was really nice. It was it was simple, themed. There was cake and themed drinks, and it was just fun to hang, and the cast was walking in and out, and they're out of costume, they're all dressed fancy and everything, and I was like, wow, this is cool to just kind of just be amongst all of them and not really make a fanfare out of it. Like no one was like hounding them. We were just like, nods, people were taking photos and stuff, but it was such a fun, chill atmosphere.
It's really one of my pet peeves, mostly for Broadway, but pretty much for any theater, is part of the excitement of going to theater as opposed to going to a movie theater is there still is an opening night. There still is an excitement that something live has been put in front of you. Mm-hmm. And the idea that they don't put a red carpet in front of every theater. Mm-hmm. They don't have Klieg lights.
Yeah.
While sometimes they do it on opening night, they don't do it every night so that when you're going to the theater, you say, this is a special event. And why shouldn't every night of 8 nights a week be a special event for the audience? And when you go inside, unlike Britain, we at least give out free programs. Britain, you have to pay. But there's an element of gifts, an element of being in a special place under special situations. And that's why people like standing outside at the stage door waiting for autographs. Even if you say, you know what, afterwards, 2 of the cast members are going to be at this restaurant down the street. Uh-huh. And if you want to go ahead, you can say hi to them. any kind of an event that allows the audience to say, I saw this, I experienced this, I was part of a special event, and I got to meet some of the talent. That, to me, is what theater ought to be about. And how many theaters do that, except opening night? You and I are privileged because we get to go to, I've had to run about 4 dozen of them, which, by the way, range from, I've spent, as the manager, I've spent as little as $800 on an opening night for only 120 people. That's pretty cheap. All the way up to $330,000 for an Andrew Lloyd Webber opening night at a major hall that they took over this 17-room armory and put all sorts of events in every room and went crazy. So, and $330,000, by the way, that was 30 years ago. So you can imagine what it would be like now, right? Wow. So there's that great, what do you call it? Experience that people in the theater, we don't share as much as we ought to. Luckily, there are actors who like to do it, who believe in it, and that's great.
I think there's, I was thinking about this the other day, how, as a small theater, I didn't have a ton of money, but there were a couple of things I always thought about that were like customer facing or sort of just people facing. Like, I don't want to, if I can avoid it, I don't want to have a black and white playbill.
Right, I understand.
And I always wanted to make sure we had a good opening party. And so I remember over the years, partnering with breweries and things like that, and to just get the cast over there to have a good time with their friends, and here's a couple of drink tickets, have fun, because we're in this, until it closes. Make people feel special.
And it's part of the reason why, even when we do a reading and the actors are getting, transportation money, $20, $25 to just show up, read part of a script, I still take them out. If they're not rushing home to their children that they have to take care of, they get to go to some diner or restaurant and eat something on me. And that's expensive, but you're asking them to work for almost nothing, right? And it's
so take care of them.
Right. And
Pasta dinner goes a long way.
And let them get to know each other and let them feel why they're doing this in the first place, which is the excitement of creativity and collaboration. And that's, unfortunately, it all costs money. And
that's our family, like a giant tree.
That's a transition.
Branching out to the sky.
Because I saw the show that beat Dreamgirls for the Tony Award, and I'm still angry.
Tell us about it.
Okay, the show was 9. It starred Raul Julia on Broadway, and it won Best Musical, won Best Score. It beat Dreamgirls. It won Best Actor for Raul Julia. And I think it won 1 or 2 other awards, like costumes or something. I don't know. Which is compared to Dreamgirls, which to me was spectacular in every one of those areas. We were in shock. Not that 9 is a bad show. Please do not take me the wrong way. But it's a very different kind of show. It is not spectacular. It is very, it's men going through a midlife crisis. It's one man with a ton of women. He plays Federico Fellini, the Italian film director, and his midlife crisis, and what does he do with a wife and all these women who love him and want to have sex with him, and that's the entire plot. It's sort of Company on steroids. Like, what do I do? Aren't I supposed to be somebody who actually can get past just having sex? I went to see that, wonderful production by Manhattan School of Music. And I went only because the last thing I remembered about 9 was how angry I was that Dreamgirls didn't win.
Let me see if I was wrong. I'm pretty sure I'm not.
Exactly, and I'm not. It does, again, it's nothing against 9. I don't want to do that. it's just sometimes a show is so overwhelmingly significant. And that's what Dreamgirls was. And 9 is rarely done. It is not, in my opinion, significant to the theater world.
Well, I had just, the reason I gave those bars is because I did see Dreamgirls this weekend.
Excellent.
I saw it at the McCarter Theater in Princeton, and it closed this weekend, and it was a great performance. It's I feel like Dreamgirls is an opportunity to bring, not an unlikely, but like to bring a new audience to your, theater, because Dreamgirls is a draw, like no matter what, but it brings people who are not traditional theater people out of the woodwork, which I think it is great. And if they do it right, it's an opportunity to invite them to return for other things. I think like some of these productions as a whole act as an affinity night. You know what I mean? Well, just because they're the way they draw. Like I can imagine here in Philadelphia when Tyler Perry produced all his plays at the Merriam Theater, which is now the Miller Theater. That brought a lot of people to that theater who may not have come, but they saw those commercials and they got a group of girls together, because it's mostly women, and they went out. They stepped out in their Sunday finest to take in the theater.
Well, it's nice. It's taken a long time. I worked on the original For Colored Girls, which Joe Papp sent to Broadway from off Broadway. And people were just rolling their eyes at him. Who's going to come? There is absolutely no minority audience, no black audience that is going to go to Broadway. Why? Because there's never been anything on Broadway that they might really say, this is for me, or this is how I see myself. Of course, it was a heavy drama and poetry and who knew what, but it worked. And it made profit, which Joe proved to the world. It started what I think it's the thing that started. I mean, we did have Raisin in the Sun before that. We did have Les Blanc, but that was Lorraine Hansberry, and she was in her own world. She was it. So it was nice to have Ntozake Shange represent, as it were, and to put on a show that seemed to attract both audiences, the white and black audience. And it maybe opened doors, maybe. But this is back, I'm going to date it, 1978? I think it's back that far. Anyway, Dreamgirls is just popular. It is something that everyone can go and enjoy, mostly because there is a film, and people have been able to see it. Anyway, speaking of which... As we go forward,
I was also going to say there is a beautiful black theater exhibit at the National Museum of African American History and Culture that is worth your time. If you have not been there, go and see it. It's beautiful. There's costumes from the Wiz, and
are we talking about
For
DC?
Colored Girls? Yes, in DC.
In DC,
yeah.
Okay. And a slightly different thing, although I've been spending a good amount of my afternoons for the past couple of weeks going to college showcases. First of all, it is pretty amazing the small number of minorities that are coming out of these theater schools. After all this time and after Hamilton and Dreamgirls, you kind of think, okay, it's going to be a little more balanced. And I've now gone to... I mean, I do this every year, but this year, I think I've seen 6 college showcases so far. I have another 6 or 8 coming up in the next week or two. There's a lot to be said about them. I'm not sure I should be saying this. I go because I love watching young talent, and they are talented. But out of a group, I'd say if I have seen 80 students in the past 2 weeks, I'd say maybe 6 or 7 of them were black. That's a very small number. You know,
those are standard musical numbers.
Yeah. Well, except now we do still have
our community is so broken.
The other interesting thing, and this is surprising to me, but I had a discussion with some casting agents today about it. I would say 80% of the black men that of those 7 or 8 that are in the 80 that I saw were extremely effeminate. And that was surprising also. They're like the leading men that we know are there, that we have seen on Broadway. You know, Leslie, what's his name from Hamilton and Pearlie?
Odom Jr.
Thank you. Leslie Odom Jr., Denzel Washington. There was no one in there to say, this is the next. They literally were tap dancing and kicking their heels up in heels, and nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong.
Turn, kick, turn, turn, kick, turn. 1, 2, 3, kick, turn.
And I was just surprised. I'm just, I'm hoping in the next 2 to 3 weeks I see more options.
Well, here's
because wait a minute, let me do my advertisement.
Yeah.
The Farm, which we work on, which develops new shows.
We Grow Theater.
WeGrowTheater.com. Okay. The Farm, we have plenty of roles for people of all different ethnicities and ages and sexual orientations and this and that. And I'm always looking who's going to be the next that we work with, who could replace someone if they're not available. So I go very seriously to these college showcases. Unfortunately, there are some that are good and some that aren't so good. What can I tell you? All right. I did my radical speaking, but that's my truth.
Well, what I was going to say is what's interesting is how the theater community is now, working harder to embrace diversity. However, the pipeline that leads us to these theaters isn't more accessible to the diversity. And so that's why you're seeing only a handful of people of color in these showcases, because they still have to get in those doors, and those doors still have a hefty price tag.
Yes.
As we know, student loans are at like $1.6 trillion right now in student loan debt. And even over the pandemic, of course, there was these questions about like, I'm at an Ivy League school and we're working remotely. So what's the point of being here if I can't be on campus and take advantage of everything you told me I needed to pay for?
It's the networking. It's the socialization that the remote doesn't offer. The prices are astronomical. You're absolutely right. And I've been saying, probably if you look back at one or two of our earlier podcasts, I was talking about it then. Interns. These are wonderful positions, except how do you ask somebody who can barely afford to go to college that they're supposed to work for free, house themselves, feed themselves, and not make a penny, but do the crap work that a nonprofit theater is asking them to do? But you're not giving them back the education.
No.
And it's outrageous. I started telling you, I better not name them, some of the bigger nonprofits here in New York. I went to one of them, one of the largest, and they had more than 24 interns working for the summer. God bless them. Not one of them was making more than like $50 a week, and they were all white women, 100%. And I'm going, and I'm not afraid to tell the story at Disney. When I was there, they had a program. They said, Mitch, would you like an intern to work? I said, yeah, there are things on budgeting that I definitely could teach somebody. I can definitely work with somebody here. They said, well, let's be aware we're being funded by a government program that requires us to have a minority intern. I said, fine, no issue. Send me whoever you think might be appropriate. I'll interview a few of them and pick one. They sent me 9 white women and 1 Asian woman.
And I said, women minorities?
Women were under the guidelines of the federal government were considered minorities. I said, but this is Disney. We're in Los Angeles. Where's everybody else? And they said, well, nobody applied. I said, would you like me to open my phone book? I just moved here. I will find you someone down the block. This is out, and I wasn't allowed because it has to go through their system.
Wow.
So these are the things that I don't think people understand are the obstacles. You're absolutely right. And college tuition's the biggest one.
Yeah. And whenever I talk to people who are in the community or who are maybe they have a foot out of the community, I start saying some things I learned working in retail at this fruit-themed technology company is that on the way out, you have to think about how your skills translate in the real world, you know? And I think when we get immersed in theater, it's hard to see how any of our value is also valuable outside of the community. And I think there's a lot of people who feel like they can't consider or they can't try to venture out and use these skills somewhere else. And that's not to say to completely leave theater, because your theater's in your bones. Like, you're just going to have it no matter where you go. But it's things like that also make it hard to think like, oh, wait a minute, I do have skills that are useful in this community as well. You know, the people on the outside who don't realize because they didn't go to a theater program or they don't really know, specific people in the business. And all of that stuff. So like you said earlier, it's about networking. Absolutely. And if you don't know anybody in theater, it's hard to figure out a way in.
Well, and let's, just as a word of advice, which I tell every college student who asks me, if there is somebody on Broadway, in film, wherever it is, who you admire tremendously, and you would, other than you're a fan, I mean, we're not talking Taylor Swift, right? It's like somebody who you just say, I want to work with this director. I want to work with or learn from this actor. Write them a letter. They actually read them, because most people think they're unapproachable. Well, how do you get their address? Figure out what theater they're working in. Find anybody you can, hand deliver it, ask somebody else, or walk up to anyone at a theater near you and say, can you help me find the agent for so-and-so?
Yeah.
And then write them a letter. One, as my mother used to say, it can't hurt, right? But chances are they will respond, and you might get, well, why don't we talk?
Yeah.
I think you have the same situation. I've been called. I wrote a letter to Carol Burnett once when she was young. I wrote a letter to Gene Kelly. Both of them called me on the phone within a week. I was like, I couldn't even know what to say. And they both invited me to meet with them, and we talked over a project. And it's like, it just blew my mind that people at that level would even talk to me.
Yeah. I felt the same way here in this community. There is this assumption that no one's approachable. You can't get that close to an artistic director. I'm like, what do you mean? Right. And when you do, you're just I always say I'm a Philadelphia fan. So, I feel like anybody who's doing great work in Philadelphia, I'm just a fan. I want you to succeed. I want to do whatever I can to help you succeed. And, I think about 1812 Productions artistic director, Jennifer Childs. When I first met her for the first time, I was just blown away about how warm and inviting she was. And it was at the time I was starting Rep Radio, and I said, I don't know if you're interested, but I would, I started this new arts podcast, and I'd love to be able to talk to you about, what you have coming up and, some of your background and everything. She was like, yes, I would love to. Absolutely. She just met me. And I walked away going, oh my God, Jen Childs talked to me. And now, we're on committees and like we're colleagues. And, I love the fact that I made that connection before. And I've covered 1812 over the years many times. And I look forward to a lot of their work.
And to be clear, there are exceptions to this nice rule. And they're the ones that should all go away because they don't understand why we're in this business. I've been extremely lucky. I can talk to everybody that I've ever worked with, and those are in the thousands at this point. And and they can talk to me. And every time I meet someone new, I'm more interested because they're a creative soul with talent. Why wouldn't I want to know them?
Yeah.
It's exciting. You're feeling new energy. So, just open up. Of course, the problem is there are shy people out there who use theater as an excuse to open up on stage. Well, that's part of what you have to learn to get over.
Well, I'm going to go back to the diversity topic a little earlier. And I know in a previous episode, I was feeling some kind of way about affinity nights, but perhaps that is a good night to network, to get yourself into the community if you are young and of color, to consider those nights. As an opportunity to meet people and make connections, because whenever we have an opportunity to congregate, like for example, here in Philadelphia, Theater Philadelphia, who is like our marketing, like the theater community's kind of marketing champion, I guess. They would do these meetups, a theater meetup in September, and it's at a beer garden that's hosted by the Philadelphia Horticulture Society, and there's many people who are like various levels of being in the business show up, and I met 2 new people who were like new to our industry, like new to Philadelphia's theater community, and they were like, "Hey, yeah, I'm just new," and I was like, "So what brought you to this thing?" And it was like, "Well, I heard about it, and so I decided to come," and it was okay. Do you know what you want to do in the community? No, I have no idea. I was like, okay, that's great. And then we turn around and Pulitzer Prize winning playwright James Iams is right behind us. And I was like, is that Pulitzer Prize winning playwright James Iams? And he's like, I'm just James. And came over and met those 2 people. And it was like, how cool. Did you think you were going to come to this event and meet a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright? And then all these other people just kind of gravitated to us because James was there, and then they got to meet so many people, and it was great. It was such a great opportunity.
Well, I will say one of the things, and again, you're talking about the diversity, the affinity nights, which the people who are going to be your advocates, regardless of their ethnicity, color, whatever. But if you feel the easy advocate is going to be someone of your color, then that's great because they do advocate for each other. They do want to work with each other. And plus, there are white people who go to these affinity nights too, and you're all going to meet each other, and you bump into each other, at least here in New York, on the streets. Believe it or not, you actually do. 8 million people. I'm bumping into people almost every day.
And another 100 people just got off of the train.
But I need to sing the praises of Theater Philadelphia. I went to a round table sponsored by an organization called Art New York, which is the Alliance of Resident Theaters of New York. But it's Art, A-R-T. They're an association of off-Broadway theater companies, very small companies that are just doing their best to survive. They do own some studio space, rehearsal space, and even some theater space now. Mm-hmm. So they had a roundtable about how do we find inexpensive rehearsal and performance spaces in a city that has turned all of the smaller spaces, into office buildings. Mm. And there were I'd say about 16 people that came to this roundtable in Brooklyn. And for someone who lives in Manhattan, that's an excursion for me. The takeaway for me, besides meeting some wonderful people who really care about their own theater companies and they have some space, is they looked at each other and said, oh, I didn't know you had space. Oh, I didn't know you had space. And so I brought up Theater Philadelphia. I said, in the old days, meaning my days when I was in my 20s, we had an organization that had a newsletter that we actually talked to each other. We actually, and we didn't even have internet then. So you had to actually physically get a newsletter.
Yeah.
And it would say, so-and-so has this space available at this price. So-and-so is having a show during the month of June, but July is completely empty. And they looked at each other and said, that would be great. We don't know what each other is doing. And I'm going, whoa. It's that simple communication. And what Theater Philadelphia, and by the way, perhaps your entire community, you feel like a community, which is what I used to feel like in New York when I was younger. Mm. Now it is scattered. It is very commercial. Money is everything. Everything costs a fortune, even the smaller spaces. It's very difficult for these creative people to find a way to do their creative work. Mm. I had lunch the other day with a friend from La Mama, which is a very famous off-Broadway theater company around the street from the Public Theater. They've struggled. They have a wonderful new artistic director after Ellen Stewart passed away, who has a vision, which is great. But it's on East 4th Street in the Village. It's still hard for them to have their money, to figure out how they're going to afford to do things, to invite people in. It's a struggle.
Yeah.
And yet they don't communicate with these other theater companies to let them know about each other. So I'm hoping Art New York will take that as a lesson and try to put something together. Certainly I could do it on my own, but I'm not going to.
One can only hope. I know, like they're an art service organization. That's what they should be doing.
Well, but communication seems to be the hardest thing. I think the pandemic kicked everyone's butt. Maybe it wasn't the pandemic's fault, but it's really important. I mean, and again, I'm lucky knowing you that I know about Philadelphia. Hmm. Here in New York, we are really egotistically city-centric. It's all about New York. So that's a problem. But to know that Philadelphia has theater companies that are inviting, that do theater, that are creative, and is only an hour and a half away by train. I mean, it's no big deal. And, colleges, God forbid, colleges open up their doors to theater companies to let them use spaces which they have and they underuse. That's another pet peeve. Is pet peeve one of the hashtags we're going to use for this podcast?
My pet peeves. That'll be a rejected title.
You're right. We can do it next time. Okay, that'll be it for next time. My pet peeves. All right. Other than that,
let me think of what else.
We always have to end with Broadway. We have 18 new shows opening within 2 months. My prediction is out of the 18 new shows, 14 of them will close on July 4th or thereabouts. And they will have lost all their money.
Because I'll be after the Tonys.
After the Tonys, because there's too much competition. The critics or the bloggers or whoever shows up and the voters are going to be exhausted trying to see 18 new shows in 2 months, that even if a show is decent, they're going to go, I'm tired, this bored me. And a few shows will survive because they have audience appeal, but they're all competing for the same marketplace.
Yeah.
And New York still hasn't brought in enough tourists to fill 41 theaters. It's not about not having a good audience. It's just about not having enough.
Yeah.
So people, come on in, help us fill these seats, and therefore maybe the prices will go down because we'll have more people in them.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna keep this episode short, but before we go, I want to point out two things. One, here in Philadelphia, it is we're coming up on Philly Theater Week. It is a week dedicated to showcasing all, our community as a whole. It has been an opportunity for smaller producers to put something up in this block and have special attention focused on them. It's also a great opportunity for the established companies to offer a discount on a block of dates in Philly Theater Week to make theater more accessible. So that's a good thing. You can check out by going to Theater Philadelphia, and that's ER or RE, Philadelphia.org. And you can find out more about Philly Theater Week. And also, we touched on it earlier. Mitch and I are part of a play development group called The Farm We Grow Theater. And we're
ER.
With a ER, yes. Got a new website in the works at wegrowtheater.com. And you can check that out and find out about, we have 9 plays.
6 plays, 3 musicals.
Yeah, that we've been working on for since 2019?
Yep.
Yeah, like right before the pandemic. And these plays are basically turnkey. They are ready to go.
Well, they're ready they're ready for production.
They're ready for your eyeballs.
There you go.
Yes. So definitely check those out, and we'll have the links in the show notes. But that is The Business of Theater, a working title. I'm Darnelle Radford.
I'm Mitch Weiss with Pet Peeves.
Pet Peeves. And we'll see you and our pet peeves at the theater.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time for another episode of The Business of Theater, a working title, with Darnelle Radford and Mitch Weiss. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Share the podcast with a friend, colleague, or give us some social media love. This podcast is an Emory production. Visit us online at em3ry.com/TBOT. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at em3ryotm.